I was actually thinking about this last night, because there's so many scenarios in life, like when you're talking about money and business, where you either look at nature or you look at your past experiences and learn from it. And for example, last night me and George were talking about money and rent and stuff like that, and I see it because I've been a pilot, I see it completely differently. Like options that wouldn't necessarily be an option to her are options to me, because when you're in an emergency situation or you're in the sim and you're training, you weigh up all your options. And unfortunately, if you want to know this as a passenger, ditching into the sea is always an option. How bad, it doesn't matter, obviously it's the very, very last option, but when it gets to that point, you've got to consider every single option. So in this case, for us paying rent, maybe sleeping in the street might be an option, or living with a mum, your mum be an option. Sleeping in the warehouse might be an option. Not a good option, but it's definitely an option.
I mean, sleeping in your warehouse is beautiful. I mean, I would sleep in your warehouse.
Yeah,
I think what's important, you're bringing up these kind of processes that you've learned. And I think in any job you pick up different skills, different processes you have to do in an emergency situation. I mean, I've done the kind of medical kind of first aid stuff and also had similar stuff. Could you tell us any of the other processes that you used as a pilot that you can now apply to either your plant business or just to life in general that might actually help people through lockdown or through decisions that they're making?
Yeah, God, there is so many. I think the umbrella of it all is just the continued personal development. Like we, as a pilot, you had to have a sim every 6 months. You're continuously learning. You want to be a captain. You want to be a training captain. So it's just that continual personal development. In the cruise, we kind of learn more about the plane. And you kind of want to be the best of as a pilot who you are. And I think I saw that through kind of everyone. You always have a sim. People always learning. So I think the continued personal development. There are loads of little things, like for example, we used to have this saying, nutter. And it's a saying spelled as in N-U-T-A, and it's a saying for situational awareness. If you ever lose cap, you notice, you understand, you think ahead. There's other things like decision-making tools that we had called TDODA, so time, you diagnose, options, decision, action, and review. So these are all good ones in day-to-day. Like a little one that could help is one called a NITS brief. So if we have an emergency, we format what we say to passengers, crew, whoever. It's just a nice way of saying it. So you can say it to, if you have the bin man outside that you want to approach him and say something. So it would be the nature, your intention, time, and any special instructions. So you can really format things in such a way. So you might be like, okay, we've got an engine failure on the left. That's the left-hand side. Our intention is to return back to London Heathrow. The time, we're going to be on the ground in 10 minutes. So I need the cabin done in 5 minutes and just prepare for a normal landing. That's a really good way to kind of structure it. And we have loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of acronyms just to help us through the day-to-days. And yeah, but there's so much in life.
I really like the one about where when you're making a decision, you have to kind of disprove it. Is that right?
Yeah, so you look at confirmation bias and you ask the other person and you go, why wouldn't we choose this? Why would we choose this? And like I said, it's always, we get, 2 or 3 days a year, every year, where we're just looking at, it's called crew resource management, because if you guys don't know a lot about aviation, most of the accidents are caused by human factors and have been in the past. Obviously it's a human operating a machine. We're going to be the biggest killers, so a lot of our time is spent looking at crew resource management, decision making models, how the brain works, training the chimp. When you see a red flashing light, most of the time it's best just to do nothing, and it's the hardest thing to do as well. That is the best thing is to do nothing in so many situations. And even just little things like that you can apply to life. The amount of times you have an argument, imagine if you just did nothing, it wouldn't have happened. You'll still be friends with them, and so most, do nothing, think about it, sit on your hands, evaluate the situation. All this sort of stuff, it sounds easy, but when you're in the moment, you're feeling emotions, and you hear an engine fail, or even just a little thing like you hear the toilet smoke alarm go off and you get red flashing lights and you're over the sea somewhere, the emotion you feel, the panic you can feel, it's so hard to sit on your hands, just relax when this alarm's going off, and just to have a clear mind and think. And it is such a skill, and there are so many captains that are so more experienced than me, that in those situations I've been like, and I've looked at them, they've just been so calm and relaxed, and
I mean, I agree with you. Obviously I've not been a pilot, but through the kind of first aid stuff, I think also with the red flashing light, there's a lot of pressure, not from just yourself, but from other people. I feel bystanders, so your passengers on the plane, and if you apply it to life, all your friends, all your family, if there's an emergency going on and you need to make a decision fast, you're going to have people telling you, you've got to make a decision, and putting pressure on you. But even from the first aid side of this, someone said to me once, it's a whiskey and a cigar moment. I think that might have been from Borneo. Can't remember, too many experiences, where when something happens, sometimes it's best to just pretend you've got a whiskey, pretend you've got a cigar, and you just take a moment, 5 seconds to think, compose your thoughts, and then carry on, because without a clear mind, it's detrimental.
And there's so many things you take from that. You got to remember, like, for a start, when we make a decision, it's never a final decision. We always, the end of the T-DODA model, the decision maker model, there's a review. We constantly go through that every 5 minutes, or every time a failure changes. Have we, what's changed? Does that change our decision? Review everything you do. Review. Some people, there've been accidents in the past where people make decisions and they've been so stubborn and want to be right. It's caused the death of 300 people. So there's, unfortunately, and it's the same with life, drop your ego, make a decision. If someone's got a better idea than you, change your decision. It's not being indecisive, it's being open to change. And ultimately, if you want the best decision, you need to be open to change. And then I think everyone's got their own opinion and everyone's living their own reality. So, like, we might land and the weather's been bad and people are going, but my kids are this, my kids haven't eaten. We're thinking about the majority, the bigger picture, and they're thinking about, their 1-year-old who hasn't eaten. And everyone's got an opinion. Everyone obviously is living a different life and has different priorities. So you just got to ultimately just do the best for the most amount of people, basically.